Gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Tabet Abu Ras, who is one of our partners, the Abraham Fund's co-executive director. Tabet, thank you so much for being here and joining us. And as I mentioned earlier, an expert on the topic of Bedouin, and Dr. Safa Abu Rabia, who is a Palestinian Bedouin from the south of Israel and currently a postdoctoral fellow at Harvard University, studying anthropology. They're going to catch up first, and then we're going to get to the stuff. Thank you so much both for being here. I'm going to start with asking you about just your general reflections on the film as far as authenticity and its messages.
Should I start?
Ladies first.
Hi, good evening everyone, shalom. I think the film is very accurate and very authentic, and it surprised me actually as a Bedouin coming from Israel. I didn't expect it to be this way, because actually the Bedouin society in Israel, as the dominant other in Israel, are portrayed mostly under Orientalistic categories as nomads and primitive who oppresses their women, under this binary dichotomic view of the West that portray the other as under specific issues. And here the movie visualized a more complex and complicated reality of the Bedouin society. It shows the harsh reality of the unrecognized villages in Israel, that half of the Bedouin society live this way, and this political context is absent from the dominant discourse in Israel. Actually, most of the Israelis don't even know anything about the Bedouin, but they think they know everything they need to know about the Bedouin. And this film takes us to the backyard of Israel and show us what is really happening there. And I expected to deal more, or to emphasize more, the polygamy issues, as you know, the Bedouin men, the patriarchal side that will be more stressed in this film. But actually, this film exposes us to the political context, which is something that people do not know. Mostly we know, or we hear from the media or from the Israeli discourse, even the academia. As a scholar, I can say mostly we know more about the struggle over land and the unrecognized villages from the Zionist and Israeli point of view, as they want to modernate and civilize Bedouin and need to be reorganized in the space, etc. And we don't hear about the voices of the Bedouin themselves. And this film actually takes us to tour into the Bedouin villages and into the nuance, into the culture, into the values, into the identity and the dilemmas of the Bedouin, and show us a more complicated way that we are not exposed to.
Well, I guess, first of all, good evening. Masa al-khair in Arabic. One of the great thing, an Israeli movie in Arabic. Okay? An Israeli movie in Arabic with Arab actors, almost no Hebrew at all, except if you remember with the bus station there's something, and there is one glance from Ben Gurion University that nothing even written there in Hebrew. Anyway, it's a very authentic and genuine movie. I really loved it. A movie that highlighted that one of the most serious problems that the Bedouin community in the Negev is facing. Actually, a lot of problems. One of them, it's this conflict between modernity and traditions, the conflict between the issue of polygamy in a modern state of Israel, and no doubt Israel is a modern state. 36% of the total marriages in the Negev, in the Bedouin community, actually are polygamist marriages, 2, 3, and 4 wives. Okay. 36%, it's a lot. But also there are a lot of challenges that I believe that movie I love the movie that's highlighting this issue. However, the movie is not giving a hope. For me, I didn't feel the hope, and I am here to tell you there is a hope. There is a big hope because the hope that with Safa is a professor in Harvard University now, and she's a Bedouin. Okay, what a great hope. So yes, there is a hope. And the story of the film, I guess, I believe that based on I feel, I want to say it as an expert of the Bedouin community, it's based on a research that done by another professor, a Bedouin woman. It's called Sarab Abu Rabi'a, and happened to be her sister. Okay, another professor in the same family. So there is a hope. The movie is shedding light on different issues. Yes, it seems that this village is really disconnected from the whole environment. If you just remember the main road, it's 200 yards from the village, 200 yards from the main road between Beersheba and Dimona, yet a village called unrecognized village, a village with 2,000 people. It happened that to know the village very well, to know the people. Unfortunately, the man who just passed in the first episode, in the first minute, say, well, I will see you in the wedding, has just passed away 2 days ago, unfortunately. In any case, I believe that the movie, you can summarize it from the first minute, when the father, Sliman, stopped the car and said to Layla, stop, and exchange with her. He's driving, she cannot drive, okay? She can drive outside, but she cannot really drive within the village itself. So I believe it's great that this movie come to you, and you know more about the Bedouin community. But I would like you to know more about the Bedouins, not to be limited to the issue of polygamy, modernity, other traditions. This community in Israel is facing a lot of challenges, okay? And maybe we can talk about in different, if there's a different question.
Well, I was going to ask, one of the criticisms of this film is that it doesn't show any of the, it deals with the polygamy questions, but it doesn't show some of the, I guess, socio-political issues, the fact that this is an unrecognized village, and what that really means for the Bedouin community. Maybe you could share a little bit about what is not shown in this film that kind of enlightens a little bit more on the Bedouin experience as far as it being an unrecognized village. What does that mean to the audience?
Well, unrecognized villages, actually villages not recognized by the government of Israel. Most of those villages existing there in this area, even before the inception of the State of Israel in 1948, these villages without, as you said, without paved roads, without electricity, without water. You saw electricity. This electricity is actually generated by gas. When Layla and her mother tried to that didn't work. In any case, it's a village that no political representation for the people. People cannot elect their own representatives. There is no local government to run and to give services to the people. Those people are citizens of the country. They are voting in the general election, national election for the Knesset, but they are not voting at the local level. Now we are talking about the whole Bedouin community. We're talking about 240,000. Around half of them, a little bit less than that, living in such villages, and they are making up 1/3 of the population of the Negev, the whole Bedouin community. Okay, 1/3 of the population. And the Negev is a vast area in Israel. There is a real issue of land dispute between the Bedouins and the State of Israel. Land claims that can be solved and should be solved. There is enough room for everybody in the Negev. The Negev consists of 60% of the total geographical area of Israel. and the Bedouins claiming a very small portion of that land. If the government of Israel is going to be very generous or to give the Bedouins all they demand, all they claim, they will control only 5% of the total geographical area. And let us remember that we are talking about indigenous people. They perceive themselves as indigenous. We are here before the establishment of the State of Israel.
Thank you for enlightening a little bit more. Safa, I want to ask you your secret. How did you not end up the way this film ends? How did you manage to break with tradition in many ways, and your family too? What makes it different, and is that something that can be translated to every family?
Actually, I also would like to relate to your previous question. When we want, actually, my dilemma is how to tell the story of my society. What side of my society would I like to present? Should I stress the achievement and the success of my society, or should I tell the misery and the political side and the political context? And my answer for myself after a few years of dealing with this dilemma, that we can't tell this side of the story without telling this side of the story, because we cannot tell about our achievement and our successful journey without dealing with the context that we came from. Last year, Dr. Sarah Abu Kaf, she's a psychologist, she came to Boston, to Harvard University for she won the Fulbright Fellowship, and she was a postdoctorate fellow at the Harvard University. She came here with her 6 children and her husband, who really supported her. And she came from Batin, which is an unrecognized village near Omer. I don't know if you heard about Omer. It's like 10 minutes from Beersheba, one of the richest villages Jewish villages in Israel. And when you hear her story or her narrative, she will tell you more about the challenges she is facing within the unrecognized village of dealing with no running water and no electricity, and not with a patriarchy that prevent her from, or her husband or her family actually really supported her in her academic life. So what kind of story can we tell is that in spite of this political circumstances, in spite of these specific challenges, people do succeed and manage to get out of there and make a difference. And here we can see Laila, when what is her journey, what are her obstacles towards her academic life. Not only the patriarchy and the tradition and the tribalism that control her life, but also the basic daily life that what is absent there is the running water, basic needs, running water, electricity. These kind of things are not supposed to prevent her from continuing in her academic life, in her successful journey. So we need to relate to it in this both sides. As for my story, actually my father came from unrecognized village, a Kohli village near Arad. He's the first Bedouin physician in Israel, and my mother is a Muslim from Nazareth. Originally, her family came from Lubie, the uprooted Palestinian village that used to be called Lubie, and today it's called Kibbutz Lavi near Tiberias. And we lived in Beersheba. She couldn't live in. They're both very educated, and my mother didn't agree to live in unrecognized village. And they both believe in higher education, and they push us very hard for that. And actually, my mother always told us that education is our weapon to succeed in life, because we lost the land, and this is what left for us, and especially for you as women who came from traditional society. She also raised us to be a proud Bedouin. She always told us that the Prophet Muhammad is Bedouin, and you're supposed to be proud of your Bedouin identity. I think this is why we came more Bedouins, and we chose the Bedouin identity to be more dominant in our identity and in how we define ourselves. And we live in Beersheba. We study, me and my other sisters study in Arab schools in Tal el-Sabah, which is a Bedouin village near Beersheba. But since my parents believe in higher education, they transfer us to Jewish schools, and there I will talk about myself. I start to ask a question about my absent history and existence in the historical books, and actually also my Jewish friends ask me, so where did you came from? And I rely on what I know today to define the oral history of my families, the existence when we used to visit my father's unrecognized village and see the reality there, and when my grandfather from Lubye village, the former Lubye village, used to take us to their village and used to show us where they used to live before 48. So displacement actually influenced my identity, and I start to ask this question. And after that, as an anthropologist, I wanted to articulate this question, this oral history of my family into an academic knowledge, so I can confront the state institution and its disposition plans towards my society. And I also want to voice and the unheard voices of my society, and this is what I do. My dissertation actually deals with the oral history of Bedouin women from 48 generation, the hair story, how and their attachment to their historical lands.
So I'm going to ask one last question before we open it to your questions and comments. One of the controversies about this film is this was made by an Israeli Jewish filmmaker from the center of Israel. The film was embraced in Israel and won the Ophir Award. It's kind of a very applauded film, yet one might say, and some argues, that it's an outsider perspective who's almost giving an Orientalist kind of perspective on this Bedouin community. I'd love your reactions, your feelings to this. Agree, disagree?
Well, I really disagree. I would like to thank her. If the Bedouins, if we are the Arabs not willing or we are not capable to bring this issue of conflict or polygamy, whatever, I think great that somebody else can do it, can be a Jew, and there are a lot of good Jews in Israel. Okay, so I think we should look to the movie from a professional way. I think it's very professional. I liked her. I think it's well done. Yes, I believe that the movie didn't talk about, for example, the main issue today that faced by the Bedouins is demolishing of houses. If you remember, Suleiman, the father of Layla, when he talked with the boyfriend with Layla, what's his name? Yeah, they talked about demolishing of houses. Even today, I'm from here, I'm sitting here, I'm watching what's going on in the Negev. They demolished 4 or 5 houses. By the way, all of those unrecognized villages, according to Israeli law, are illegal. Even they built before the establishment of the state of Israel. Okay, they are legal and doomed to be demolished. And the Bedouins, the government is suggesting for the Bedouins to move into the urban places. They are trying to urbanize them. Okay, as urbanizing, as modernizing them. Well, the Bedouins would like to keep their way of living. I think the government should give them different options of living, just the way that Jewish people live in the Negev. They can live in kibbutzim, in moshavim, in urban places, even in some cases in individual farms. Why we cannot offer the Bedouin citizen, the same options of living? So all in all, the movie is not talking about all of the issues. I didn't like the fact that they isolated this place called Khasham Zanni, by the way, and Zarnuk. The filming took place in two unrecognized villages, one called Khasham Zanni and Abu Quaider, very close to each other. And it's like isolated from the reality of Israel. Israel is a very modern country, and all of a sudden we see the backyard, really, the fourth world even, places with nothing almost, okay? But happy that this movie came out, and I think it's very successful.
I also disagree with this perception. I expected it to be more orientalistic film. I think the film is very professional because it touches you, it stays with you, it shakes you, and it's really like punch you, and you keep thinking about it. And this is what means for me that this film is very professional. It's very authentic because it shows very complicated and complex way of the life of the Bedouin society. It is an internal gaze, okay, of the Bedouin society that we are not used to hear and we are not used to see. And actually, by this film, we also can feel it. So, and I spoke with the producer, with the Elita, and I asked her, "Are you Bedouin by any chance? I mean, you need to be Bedouin, sensitive, very aware of this nuance of the culture dilemmas, to show it and to criticize it." And she told me that, from her experience, that her mother used to film for years in unrecognized village, and she used to live with her there. And actually, it took her like 7 years to produce this movie. For 5 years, she lived there. She showed it to Bedouin. She get the legitimacy from them, but also their approval and their comments on it. And of course, it does show, you know, the how do you say the laundry, the dirty laundry of, you know, the thing that we are not proud of, but it needs to be shown so we can criticize it, we can deal with it. It doesn't only show that it's not only the backyard of the Israeli society that Israelis need to deal with. It's only things that we as a Bedouin society need to deal with and criticize it, and we need to see it. We need to deal with it. This is also our dilemmas as feminists, as women, and this is a thing that we need, you know, to deal with it also.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. We'd love some questions from the audience. We're passing around the mic.
Yeah, I have a question. The Bedouins, as you said, are on supposed Israeli land, and the Israelis come in, this is kind of a question to you, and demolish the villages with no offering of any kind. When someone is ill in a Bedouin village in the Negev, where would they go for schooling or for medical help?
Good question. Those Bedouins there are 45 unrecognized villages. Following petitioning the Supreme Court, some of those villages, the large ones, have already, I will say, medical center, not medical center, it's what's the Kupat Khulim? Health clinic, thank you. There are in 10 out of the 45 villages, there is health clinic. But again, the health service is very, very limited until 12 o'clock at noon, and that's it. But those villages are close to Beersheba. It's around 10 and 15 and 20 kilometers, most of them. They are getting service from the city of Beersheba itself. But education also, I'm happy that there is a Supreme Court in Israel. The Bedouins used to still going to petitioning the Supreme Courts for help, and in every single ruling, always the court saying, well, you should give service to the Bedouins, including especially the education service. The problem implementing those decisions, it takes sometimes 5, 10, 20 years to implement these decisions. And yes, it's ridiculous to wait to petition the Supreme Court to get education service. And still, I can give you one statistic in the unrecognized villages. In Israel, every single kid in the age between 3 to 5 entitled to access to early education. 70% of the Bedouin kids in the unrecognized villages still without early education. It's 2 years, okay? So imagine, I think if the government really would like to take care of the demography, okay? We're talking about Bedouins having a lot of kids. By the way, the Haradik Jews have higher birth rate than the Bedouins, okay? But if you want to take care of that, invest in education. It's unacceptable. 52% of the total birth rate in Soroka Hospital in Beersheba are for Bedouin mothers, okay? 52%. The Bedouins making up 1/3 of the population. Bedouin women contribute to 50% of the total birth in the hospital. You are crossing Ben Gurion Avenue to Ben Gurion University, you will find only 2% of the total students there are Bedouins. Where the Bedouins disappear, okay? So why? There is a problem. The government is not investing enough. And the Bedouins have to go and petition the Supreme Court to get services for those unrecognized villages.
How would you describe the northern Bedouins' development in comparison to the Negev?
Well, in the northern part, in the Galilee, there are around 60,000 Bedouins. They are not really Bedouins, okay? Bedouins, the word Bedouins came from the word in Arabic, Badia. Badia means desert. There is no desert in the north, okay? But those people are immigrated to that area and they stick the word Bedouins. Their situation is a lot better than in the Negev. It's not more educated, no, but they are, in terms of employment, they have better opportunities since they are volunteering in the Israeli army. Most of the Bedouin of the north, they are volunteering in the Israeli army. About in terms of education, no. By the way, I just indicated the issue of hope, that the film, if I have a criticism to the movie that not giving hope, I would like to tell you that 15 years ago, there is only 10 physicians, 10 doctors in the Negev. Today, we have over 300 of them. If you visit the Soroka Hospital, you will find every third or fourth doctor will be a Bedouin doctor, okay, physician there. If you go to pharmacies in Beersheba, half of them are with Bedouin pharmacists. So things are changing in the right direction. We didn't say that in the movie. Despite of all of these conditions, still things are moving in the right direction.
Okay, I have several things that I want
Into the mic, ma'am. Thank you.
There are several things that I want to mention with you, to you. First, the Israeli government has a plan of where villages should be. You cannot just say that you have villages that have been there, they have no water, the Israeli government is doing nothing for them. The Israeli government has something that is called in Hebrew Tochnit Mitar, which means a total plan of how they want to see the Negev developed. The Bedouin do not want to change or obey or look at the Tochnit Mitar and do not agree with it.
Tochnit Mitar means master plan.
Master plan for villages. So it's not just that you have an unrecognized development. They're unrecognized for a reason. So you don't want to move from those villages. But you say that even though you don't want to move from those villages, you just told us there are 300 Bedouin doctors. Where did they get their education? In Israel.
No.
Where did they go? Most of them probably went to Israeli universities.
This is a good comment. Let's get a response. Is that okay?
Just a moment. And if they didn't,
Ma'am, let's get a response. Let's get a response.
I'll let him
We're hearing
respond,
you.
But I want to, because I will have the microphone only once, I want to make another point. Let's say that they didn't study in Israel. Why didn't they? Their parents let them go to get the education.
Well, it happened that I'm a geographer and I'm a planner and I'm engaged in these issues with the government. I'm trying to convince the government to work with the Bedouin to do things through dialogue and not impose on the Bedouin certain way of living. Nobody is imposing in you, in the Jewish people in the Negev, the way they want to live. Give the Bedouins, they are citizens, give them different options just the way you are giving the Jewish people. This is one thing. The other thing, can you imagine? Israel is really a democracy. In a democratic Israel, today, nowadays, they are demolishing an unrecognized village called Al-Hiran. There is a plan. You can just Google it. A village, unrecognized village called Al-Hiran, demolishing the village to build a Jewish village on the ruin of the Bedouin village. Okay, in the ruin of that. Can you imagine that? The people call Hiran, they are taking the name, the same name. Okay, it's not acceptable. Those people.
Ma'am, are you not listening to the answer? You have to. They showed you the respect of listening to you. You should give that same respect back. That's all that you can give.
I will invite you. I'm inviting you to come with me for a tour, and we will invite somebody from the government together, and we will tour the area, and you will hear from them. You know what? The Israeli Supreme Court, not me, the Israeli Supreme Court criticized the government many times for that they are not dealing with the Bedouins in good manner. Not me. There is also Va'adat Or committee, okay? It's an official commission in Israel. Issued a report. Please read it. They are criticizing the government for dealing with the Bedouins this way. Al-Hiran people, they are served in Israeli army, and this is what they are getting. Demolishing their houses to build a Jewish town on the ruins of that village. Can you imagine a democratic country can do this? While the people, the Bedouin people say, let us live together. We don't have a problem to live with the Jewish people. There is enough room for everybody in the Negev. The Negev is 60% of total geographical area. Why you have to destroy a Bedouin village and to build on it a Jewish village? It's unacceptable.
Safa, did you want to add anything?
I think it's much more complicated and complex situation that people want to hear or want to know about it, and this is what the film actually tried to do. The Bedouin villages, the Bedouin unrecognized villages, the Bedouin are living on their historical lands that used to exist before the state of Israel, and they are paying a high price to stay there because land define Bedouin's identity, and this is opposed to the claim, the Israeli and Zionist claim that Bedouin are nomads and do not have attachment to their land. Actually, I invite you even to read not only my articles and my dissertation, but also other Jewish Israeli critical geographical that wrote about it and that research about it, and they present much more complicated situation. But I think that what we need to know is how we need to get forward. We need to know how we can, like Thabit said, how we can shape our reality, like living together in one Negev, and demolishing Al-Hiran and establish a Jewish town of settlers on the same land that Al-Hiran used to exist. We're not talking. It's unacceptable, not because we are not talking about 48, and we are not talking about the occupied territories. We are talking about citizens of Israel. Okay, so it's a whole different situation, and we need to deal with it in a different way, and we need to look at it in a more sensitive, cultural sensitive way, and more complicated way than we are used to perceive this.
Let's go to the next question here.
I have one question, very simple. Is anyone asking the question, why can all the unrecognized villages not simply be recognized?
Wow, that's a good question.
Why aren't the older unrecognized village being recognized? The ones that are more established and
Well,
in there. Yotam.
let us not hide anything, you know. Issue of land in Israel is very contested. There is no country in the world like have a policy of land like Israel. Land in Israel is about identity. It's identity. The question is not identity only for the Jews, it's identity for the Arabs, okay? Land, it's not like in the United States, you can whatever buy and sell and do whatever they want. 93% of the total land, geographical land of Israel, 93% of the total land of Israel considered as a state land, as a Jewish land, okay? Land is very centralized. See, so many songs in Hebrew about the land. Hoi artsi moladiti, adama admati. The land is mine. The
You will be
problem with the
charged
Jewish
extra
people,
for the performance.
the problem with the Jewish people, they forget that the Arabs and the Palestinians sing the same songs, the same words. El-ard btitkallem Arabi. The land is speaking Arabic, not other languages. Okay? Jalilina malak mathil. Galilee, it's us, not for anybody. This is the issue. That land is about identity for both people. They are actually competing over this land. And Israel is controlled. Now, I would like to control much of the land. Arabs in Israel, who consist of 20% of the total population of Israel, are controlling only 3.5% of the total geographical area. I think Israel, as a state, really care about more land, grabbing more land and more land. I don't want to talk anything about the West Bank and what happened yesterday in Amona. I don't want to talk about that. You can just think about it by yourself.
We have time for one last question over here.
I don't think I saw the same movie. The word Israel was not in the movie even once, and it was about women and the state of women, and you didn't mention anything, very little, and all of us are talking about politics and land. What about women?
Usually in Israel, and I guess also here, when Bedouin are being presented, the dominant discourse usually goes to politics and lands. Every time when I take groups of Israelis to get to know more of the Bedouin society, the dilemmas of intergenerational dilemmas and gender dilemmas, they are stuck with these land issues, with the land conflict, with who has the legitimacy of to claim over land and who has the legitimacy over the past, the history of this land. It's the main dominant discourse that most of Israelis are engaged in. Okay, so this is how they perceive Bedouin, as a threat and as a demographic threat, people who are invading to the land of Israel and who are breaking the law. So we need to stop them. And usually with most of the groups, I leave the land to the end of these retreats or to these tours, and they are not patient enough to. They keep mentioning it. They keep asking about it. They cannot hear about anything. They are obsessive, actually, and into this land issue, the land conflict, because, like Thabit described it very beautifully, because land defined identity both of Palestinians and the Israelis together. Now, as for women, this is what the discourse here was taking us towards the political side. But as for women, I think that women were described very beautifully in this film, and I watched the film twice. I couldn't watch it more because it was very hard for me also as a Bedouin woman. But women are perceived in this film or described in this film in a very complicated way. They had the power, okay? They are more powerful. They have more power than men. The man here, the husband, what's his name? Khalil Suleiman, is not, the patriarchal, powerful man as we can expect it from the image of Bedouin man. He's very passive, and he's follower of the tradition or of his society, and he's doing what everyone is telling him to do. Okay, he doesn't resist. The one who resists are the women, and the power here is in the hands of Layla, but more in the hands of Tasnim, her sister, which shout no, which put the scarf of her mother away, which goes back and forth to the shik, to where men sits, who rebel against everything that exists there in terms of patriarchy and tribalism and the tradition. And this is the change that is happening within the Bedouin society. Feminist organizations are working very hard within the Bedouin society to make the change, but the change here is described within cultural context and political context, but it's specifically within cultural context from within and not from outside. Because this is what I teach in Israel. I teach Arab and Islamic feminism, and main claims of this feminism that we do not want to be like the West, and we have different story to tell than the Western modernization tell. We are making change from within with the husbands and the patriarchal approvement, bargaining with patriarchy, paying a price to making a change. This is a different change, a slower one with the long terms. We can see the success of this change in the long term, and not today and now. And actually, Layla had to choose. She had like two bad choices to make. Okay, but she can choose to leave her family and pay a high price for it. Her mother would stay divorced, and her sister will never get married. And she chose to save her sisters and her family, and she will not be an easy wife for this husband of hers. Okay, even more powerful than her mother, that really control everything there, even though she pay a high price in this film. So this is the specific change that we need to analyze it from within the cultural context that is really happening now within the Bedouin society in different terms. We need to analyze it from different gaze, from different point of view.
Well, actually, I would like to refer to what you just said. Yes, it's about women, but women's rights are about politics too. Just think about it. Polygamy, you saw this second wife with this second wife is from Hebron. Hebron is an occupied territory. Okay, just imagine if we just get rid of this occupation, and we have two states. Okay, and we have a border. Imagine if we can just implement the Israeli law in Israel. Two wives and 3 wives is prohibited. Okay, it's illegal, but nobody cares about that. But I don't want to blame only the government. I have to blame ourselves. Yes, we have a problem regarding the issue of women's rights. Also, just to let you know, I think education can do a lot of this work. Okay, when the government, when we rely on a Jewish philanthropist from New York to give scholarship for Bedouin women. I mentioned the number that 2/3 of the Bedouin students in Ben Gurion University are women. Okay, this is due to the encouragement and the support of, what's his name?
Bob Arno.
Bob Arno. He's a great philanthropist from this city. Okay,
from here.
It's not from the Israeli government. The women just left. Why they are going to study overseas? Well, they are going to study overseas just because not accepted in the Israeli universities, and they're succeeding in Eastern Europe, in Germany, in Jordan, in Shechem, Nablus, and other places. They come back and they are working.
We need to understand that investing in Bedouin society in education and solving the land conflict is not only the best thing for the Bedouin, it's also will be the best thing for Israel.
Win-win situation, yeah.
And
exactly.
Also, as for the polygamy and women's issue, as opposed to land issues, they are not being handled by the government. The government doesn't. Actually, when woman is being hurt, when she is threatened, when she is suffer from, Bedouin women suffer from, Arab women, Palestinian women in Israel, when they suffer from violence, when they are threatened to be killed, when they are being killed, when they are suffer from polygamy, there is another law that for them. Okay, the law in Israel is different between Jewish and between Jewish and Arabs. The policeman doesn't arrest, doesn't deal with the violent among Arab families. They will say it's an internal issue, it's a cultural issue. We will not interfere in your issue. So women are being killed. There are a huge percent of polygamy, and nobody cares. But the government will care and does care only with the land issue, and this is one of the major problems here.
Folks, there's a lot more to discuss. This film, actually, we'll find out next Friday if it's nominated for an Oscar for Best Foreign Film. I want to, first of all, urge you to look into our partners and learn more about the Abraham Fund and about the Interagency Task Force. And I want to give a big thank you to Safa and to Tabet for taking this. Thank you for being a part. Tomorrow night, there's one more screening that's not sold out of Beyond the Mountains and the Hills. This is a must